Mm-hmm. 6:52 in Trinidad and Tobago. Well, the Works and Transport Minister Rohan Sinanan told TV6 yesterday that he's saddened by the number of accidents and road fatalities in the country. He added that despite his best efforts, there are those who insist on breaking the law, and as a result, the ministry is working eagerly on a new plan with its stakeholders and lawyers, which they hope would be implemented soon. Well, we're joined in our onset by the Minister as well as the Director of the Legal Services Unit at the Ministry of Works and Transport, Marvin Gonzales. Very good morning to you, gentlemen. Good to have you on the program. Good morning, Minister. Good to have you here with us as well. By the way, we'll be continuing this interview after the 7 o'clock hour as well, so we do have some time available to us. Minister, your expression of sadness, with the greatest respect, is taken on board, which you would expect, but the people of the country don't want expressions of sadness. They want to know what is going to be done to curb this level of carnage on our roads. Just give us your response to that plea for action rather than just emotion.
All right. Let me first say good morning, Fazir, and a pleasant good morning to all your listeners and all the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago this morning listening to this program. Fazir, before I became a minister, road carnage have always been something that disturbed me, I'm sure, and most members of the population. However, now, after taking up the position as Minister of Works and Transport, I do have a lot of responsibility to make sure that whatever can be done is done to reduce the carnage on the road. I mean, one death on the road is one death too much. I must say, though, however, over the past year, we have been implementing some new forms of action that has reduced the carnage. I mean, 2016, we saw a reduction of about 14% over 2015. And although we had a very tragic accident just a couple of days ago where a mother lost her life and two children. This year, 2016, I think these figures are about 9 so far as compared to 21 in January of 2016. However, that is 9 too much, as I said. What we have in place and should be, the legislation should be hitting the Parliament is going to Cabinet on Thursday, I think, this week, Marvin?
This week, yes.
And once that goes to the Parliament, the Cabinet approves it, the next step is for it to be laid in Parliament.
And what is that? Of course, I'll get Mr. Gonzales in on it in a short while, but encapsulate for us what that legislation is intended to do.
Okay, what we have in that legislation is the spot speed, the approval for the spot speed cameras to be enforced. We have the demerit point system, which in my opinion will be a bigger deterrent than just the fines, because there are a lot of people who feel that, okay, I break the law, I can pay the fine, it's $1,000, it's $2,000. But what is going to happen is that you're going to be accumulating points on your driver's permit, and it could end up being that you will not be allowed to drive again. We feel that is more of a deterrent than just a simple fine. Then we have one more.
Fixed penalty, the reform of the fixed penalty system.
Right, the reform of the fixed penalty system. Fazir, one of the big problems in Trinidad is that we have a lot of laws. I think we have enough laws. We have a problem with enforcement. We have a problem with prosecution. And then at the end of the day, the conviction. So with the fixed penalty aspect of it, a lot of the ticketing will be, if I wanted to use another term, a more modernized system where we'll have less use of the police going to court and a lot of video evidence, so that we feel that the conviction and the prosecution should be able to improve.
Let me bring in the Director of the Legal Services Unit at the Ministry, Marvin Gonzales, into the discussion, because the whole issue of how effective these new measures can be, effectively these new measures can be put in place, given all of the legal ramifications of what is required.
Yes.
What sort of time frame are we talking about here, Mr. Gonzales?
Well, as the Minister rightly pointed out, today the package of legislation is supposed to be approved at the LRC, at the Office of the Attorney General. Subsequently, the Attorney General indicated his intention to have the bill submitted to Cabinet for final approval before laying in Parliament. And I suspect that once Cabinet give its approval, that the matters will be before Cabinet next month for debate.
All right, and okay, and I know the whole issue of the debates in Parliament that is out of your remit. But let's assume that it gets full approval. Yeah. We know how things go in Parliament, so you never know what could happen in relation to that. There'll be some politics at play and so on. But let's assume that not long after it is approved, it is assented to, and so on. What further time frame are we talking about to actually have all the legal mechanisms in place to ensure that this new legislation, if it is to be, will actually be enforceable?
I appreciate the question, Fazir. In this particular occasion, I can give you the assurance, and I can give the national community that assurance, that as we work on the legislative package, we are also liaising with all stakeholders. We have formed a working group, an operationalization team comprising of key members of the judiciary, the Chief Magistrate, the Honourable Chief Justice. They have all given their blessings, and their most senior technocrats, senior members of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. We have members of the TT Post, because TT Post will play a key role in delivering citation notices at people's home when they breach the traffic lights and drive over the speed limit, because you're using technology to detect the offences. And so we have an operationalization team working alongside the legislative team, so that as soon as the legislation are approved before the Parliament, we are ready to implement. And as we speak, the police, the judiciary, the TT Post, the ministry, licensing department, we are making some serious changes at the licensing office, so that as soon as the legislation is approved before the Parliament, we can go into operationalization almost immediately.
A month, 2 months, 6 months, a year?
Fazir, I can tell you that the operationalization team is slightly ahead of the legislative team. In other words, as soon as the legislation is approved before the Parliament, all the stakeholder agencies will be ready to implement the legislation as soon as it is approved by Parliament.
Okay, so Minister, so it falls in your yard now as a politician. Are there going to be political games being played before this matter actually goes to the legal team to implement?
Well, Fazir, the fact that I'm here this morning is I'm using your station to try to force the opposition to support this bill when it comes to Parliament. We are going to take this to Parliament as soon as the Cabinet gives the approval, and once we don't see any reason why it should not be supported, because it's a simple majority, and then the operation of this aspect of it should just kick in immediately after that. I am very anxious to get this out there, because you said earlier, Fazir, the problem in this country is enforcement. This is another tool that we are handing to the law enforcement officers, and once they do what is expected of them, we feel that, I mean, by the end of 2017, we should see a huge reduction.
And I suppose, speaking, well, not necessarily speaking for the opposition side, but they might argue, are all the necessary systems and various checks and balances, would they be in place to ensure that the system isn't abused, whether by the police themselves, whether to target specific individuals? Will we find a situation where some people are getting off scot-free, others are being prosecuted? Are you satisfied that it will be a system that is as foolproof as it can be, given all of the technical situations that exist?
I think Fazir, Marvin just spoke about our working group that we have, and they have senior members of the police service, senior members of the judiciary involved in that. And the reason why you brought such a wide cross-section is to ensure that the public interest is protected going forward. We have to be very careful. Sometimes we want to implement strategies to curb some of the lawlessness that is happening. And if we continue to hide behind some of the suggestions that comes from some members of the public, mostly politicians, we will really not get anywhere. We have to do something, because the carnage on the road, as I said, for this month, January, is 9 too much. And we have to find a way to solve the problem. When you look at some of the accidents, it's really people just abusing the roadways. You look at the accident recently with the unfortunate case where the mother lost her life and the two children. It was somebody speeding down the bus route. I mean, up to now, we are not sure whether the person was authorized to use the bus route. We don't know what condition the driver was.
Can I just interject, Minister? How is it that after quite a few days, you as a minister or you as the authorities can't find out whether the individual involved was authorized or not authorized to use the bus route?
Well, we have to wait on a report from the police. As you're aware, Fazir, the police is not directed by the political arm. So, and I think this is part of the challenge that we face in this country. You have the police who are in charge of enforcement, and then you have the judiciary basically in charge of the conviction part of it. The government really cannot get involved at that level. So, and I think that is part of the problem that we face in the country right now. I am waiting for a report from that so that we could see exactly what went on, because I spoke to the director of highways yesterday about some suggestions that we could probably implement on the bus route and at any intersection where we have people known to break the traffic lights. And we'll be meeting later on today to try to put that in place immediately to see if that could help us with some of this lawlessness.
And Mr. Gonzales, from your experience as a legal professional yourself, do you anticipate any legal challenges to the implementation of the legislation? You say that the legal team is actually ahead of the politicians in relation to the implementation, but do you anticipate, if it were to become law, unenforceable, that you would actually face challenges in the court of law as to the legitimacy of what you are hoping to implement?
Well, you really can't anticipate what kind of legal challenges you can get from colleague attorneys. But what I can tell you is that the package of legislation that we're working on, it is they were properly researched, and we do not believe that we have trespassed on the constitutional rights of citizens. We ensuring that the rules of natural justice they're enshrined in the legislation, so that for example, before someone's driver's permit is cancelled, we want to ensure that the person is given an opportunity to respond as to why their driver's permit ought not to be revoked. That their representation will be taken on board before a final decision is made. So the hallmarks of the legislation, as we can see, they are entrenched in our constitutional principles, and we believe that once those fundamental pillars are set, that any possible challenge, can be effectively resisted by the state.
4 minutes after 7 o'clock in Trinidad and Tobago. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue our dialogue with the Works and Transport Minister, Rohan Sinanan, who might have gotten his name from Rohan Kanhai, the outstanding former Guyana and West Indies batsman. Well, the shots that he's playing this morning and calling out the opposition, are they going to be successful, or is he going to lose his middle stump when the time comes to the actual debate in Parliament for what is really a serious issue about the enforcement of legislation that is intended to make the roads even safer for us in Trinidad and Tobago? Or will colleagues like of Mr. Gonzales be obfuscating and blocking, as they invariably tend to do when they want to protect their clients who might be in breach of the law? We'll be back right after this break.
Remember, the key to success is working hard. For our country, we must have regard.
today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, it have one little thing that I want you always remember. We could make it if we try, just a little harder. If we just get one more try, life could be much sweeter. From the country we analyze just what was the problem. Yes, we start making very positive moves to solve them. We fire the old session.
10.5 minutes after 7 o'clock in Trinidad and Tobago. As we continue in the second hour of Morning Edition, we have about 10 minutes left with Works and Transport Minister Rohan Sinanan and Marvin Gonzales, Director of the Legal Services Unit at the Ministry. Minister, it's all well and good to have these things, hoping to push it through Parliament and so on, but are there the systems in place, the functional cameras, the network that would ensure that everything is tied into the proper enforcement of this legislation if it is to become a reality?
The answer to that is yes. We already have cameras up. We have already tested them. The systems seem to be working exactly where and the way it should be working. As we go along, we will be implementing more and more cameras. The big key back right now, Fazir, is just the legislation. I have seen the system at work, and I'm quite satisfied that it will be a very effective system. If you look just outside the Hyatt, when you pass sometimes, and you see the light flash, that is actually a camera there. Just recently, we had in El Sicuro where we were testing the spot speed cameras, and there was a big hoorah on social media that we were actually enforcing it. We weren't really enforcing it, but it was up and running.
But isn't that a measure, Minister, of how lawless people are?
Yeah.
We got a call when people realized that we were going to have this discussion with you. Somebody was asking, what about the new speed limit? It's new to them because 80 kilometers per hour was something that they were flouting all the time. And now it feels new because the culture of Trinidad and Tobago is to break the law until you get caught. How do you intend to change that?
Okay. Fazir, I don't think we are a lawless society. We have a
You don't think so, Minister?
I think we have a serious problem with enforcing the law. The speed guns showed us that we could abide by the law. The minute the speed guns came out, the entire country slowed down. What that shows us is that we have laws. Let us start to enforce the laws. Let us start to carry our rate of prosecution, conviction, and detection up. People will not break the law if they know they're going to be caught. But there's this big perception that is that 2 or 3% of us will be caught. And even if we get caught doing something, there's a 75% chance that we get away in the courts. So when you tally that, I mean, you can get away with crime in Trinidad just too easy. We need to plug that hole. Fazir, one of our big challenges with the carnage is a lot of drivers on the road. There's an allegation that they're getting their license at our license division under, I would say, questionable circumstances. What we're trying to do is to remodernize the license service in Trinidad and Tobago. Very soon we'll be moving the head office to the Caroni building. And the idea is to fully computerize the licensing department and try to eliminate some of the accusations that have been made down there.
Minister, with the greatest respect, you were probably in khaki pants together with myself in primary school when we were hearing about the full computerization of licensing. It hasn't happened fully as yet, and indeed, you may take exception to the comment, that is seen as a depthness of corruption, licensing division. And many attempts have been made by many ministers to bring about change, and they have all failed. What makes you feel you'll do anything different?
Well, I must say I was warned this day I brought up licensing office. I was warned that I am, as you say, going into a depthness. However, as the Minister of Works and Transport, I do have a responsibility. I must say I'm working very closely with the leaders in that office, and we are getting somewhere. We recently launched the new driver's permit. we recently launched
With
the
the American hummingbird,
Well,
you know, the whole issue with that.
There are some questions about that. I had referred that to the license department, and it's something that we will.
Well, I mean,
create
in
a
real
debate.
terms, that's a triviality compared
exactly.
to the real
Where we
issues.
are right now with the license department is that we have brought the certified copy back up running in Tobago, in Port of Spain, and very soon at all the branches. Very soon, you will not have to actually go to license office to see a real-time certified copy. I can see us getting where you said since khaki pants, we were trying to, I can see us getting there by the end of this year. I must say though, there's a lot of
You really think so, Minister?
Yes, yes.
I mean,
I feel, you see, you have to be positive.
I know, but you have to be realistic as well. There are people, as you said correctly, you wonder, there are people who don't speak English, who can't speak a word of English but have driver's license. How do they get that?
I think it's worse than that. And at this point, let me just congratulate Arrival Live for the wonderful work that they're doing. I'm working closely with them. I got a call from Ms. Inglefield this week that some of the clients who goes to them because they got the court had actually referred them, couldn't even read the regulations, and they had heavy T driver's permit. Some of them had taxi badge, and they didn't know the basic regulations of the regulations on the road.
So what is that if not corruption?
Right. So we have, you see, I can't say the allegations until it's proven or somebody is caught and convicted. So I just want to stay away from actually using the term corruption.
I respect
want to
that,
say
but
allegations.
I suppose the issue is, Minister, at the end of the day, what makes you feel that you can actually bring about the transformation in that system?
I believe that if there's a will, there's a way. And I was warned that I would get a lot of pushback. You see, there are a lot of people who want the system to remain the way it is because it benefits a lot of people. I intend to do whatever I can to change the system. We are getting somewhere. If you go to license office, some days the service improves, some days it fall back, but we're not going to stop there. There is a serious problem in license office, and we intend to fix that.
Let me just bring Mr. Gonzales back into the discussion. In reference to the legislation, the package of legislation, is this modeled after any particular jurisdiction that we see as ideal, or is it a combination of others?
It's a combination. We started looking at Jamaica being a fellow Caribbean jurisdiction with similar history. It took us to the United Kingdom, it took us to Australia, Ontario, Canada. And we took bits and pieces of the different jurisdictions and we model it that will suit our cultural circumstances. We believe that what we currently have is best suited for a country like Trinidad and Tobago. And I think it is even far superior than what exists in our other Caribbean jurisdiction.
And before time runs out on us, Minister, do people get a blight during Carnival? That because at a time when maybe people overindulge in the excesses of the season, is it a Trini thing to give people a blight during this time of the year?
Fazir, there's nothing like a blight. If you have an accident where someone loses a life, how are you going to explain to the family of that person, well, we gave them a blight? Is that person who lost their life going to come back and the Almighty will say, I'm giving you a blight this time? No, there's no blight, and there's no grace period for breaking the law. And this is why I am so adamant that if you don't have a bus route pass, you shouldn't be on the bus route. There's no blight because we are talking about people's lives.
And you've made a call out to the opposition to partner with the government in the passage of this legislation. I'm sure you would have had some preliminary dialogue because you're all members of parliament and so on. Are you anticipating resistance?
Fazir, the government has to do what the government has to do, and the opposition does what they're supposed to do. I think the population is crying out now on this motor vehicle legislation, and I think any responsible opposition will do what is in the best interest of the citizens. So I really don't expect any negative reaction from them.
You sound more hopeful than expected,
yes,
but we'll wait and see. Yes,
and if I can interject here, you asked the minister whether or not persons are going to get a blight around Carnival time. A key component of the legislation is the imposition of what we call double demerit points around certain periods of time where there is a heightened sense of illegality on the nation roads. So once the legislation is passed and implemented, around Carnival time, Easter time, Christmas time, where persons usually indulge in certain types of behavior that can become very dangerous to other road users, the minister, without having to go to Parliament, will be by ministerial order, once it is published in the newspapers, will list a number of offences for which, if persons are prosecuted, they will get double demerit points. Like for instance, if you have 6 demerit points for someone who is charged for DUI, if you are prosecuted around that period of time, usually it will last for 10 days. That is what it is intended for. Once you are prosecuted for a traffic violation within that 10-day period, as opposed to 6 demerit points, you're going to get 12. And that can possibly allow the licensing office or the minister to suspend, the licensing office that is, to suspend someone's driver's permit. So come Carnival 2018, that system of double demerit points will be introduced at certain periods of time, and persons can find themselves, if once they are prosecuted, ticketed as the case may be, can lose their driver's permit once they commit certain offences during that period of time.
Finally, Minister, before time runs out on us, let's just say I have a friend inside the ministry or in licensing there for me, and I coming up towards my limit and I'm going to lose my license, and I pass a few blue notes to him and he take me back down to 0. I'm back on the road again?
No, and that is why the full computerization of the license office,
Yes.
once that happens,
Very
Fazir,
difficult.
technology now,
Yes.
nobody could interfere.
But it
with
still
the
has to be
system.
input by human beings.
Well, Fazir, there's nothing that is 100% foolproof,
Yes.
but we'll try to get as close as possible to that. Carnage on the road has personal responsibility. Life on the whole has personal responsibilities. Even crime. Citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have to take personal responsibility for us going forward. And I just hope that the people responsible for enforcing the rules and the regulations do exactly what they're being paid to do, and I mean paid legitimately, and we all work together to build Trinidad and Tobago.
But just on that final point, because as you yourself acknowledge, there are so many stakeholders who benefit from the way the system is at licensing. Don't you feel that in 6 months' time you're going to, maybe not in this forum, but somewhere else you're going to say, well, boy, I'm frustrated. I resign. I can't change this thing.
Fazir, this is Trinidad and Tobago, and we cannot give up. The minute we throw our hands in the air and give up, then, I mean, this place is going to be chaos and anarchy.
You're
So
going
we
to
cannot-
get a lot of pushback.
I am. Someone told me, boy, you walk around without security. Why you do that? You know what you're doing? You're going to interfere with license office, you know. At the end of the
But
day,
that's a serious thing.
I took an oath of office. When I took that oath, I mean, I have to live by that oath, and I have to do what I have to do.
Minister, thanks very much for taking
You're
the time
welcome, Fazir.
to chat
Thank
with
you.
us. Mr. Gonzales, good to have you here with us as well as we talk about the issues related to law on the roads and abiding by the law. And as the Minister himself said, I think most of us recognize we don't need more laws, we need enforcement of the law. But in this case, the additional legislation could actually expedite the process of making the roads a much more lawful place than it is now. And as those that arrive alive often said in the single field especially, who knows all too well the consequences of improper conduct on the road because she lost a son due to carnage on the roads, and she identifies with the situation. It really is about individuals acting responsibly and behaving within the law. 80 kilometers per hour was the law for a long time. It doesn't shock a lot of people last year because it was actually being enforced. There's nothing new. We'll take a break, 7:23 in Trinidad and Tobago, and maybe we'll find out in a few months if Rohan Sinanan is still the minister and Mr. Gonzales is still in the legal unit, or maybe obfuscating somewhere else. We'll find out in the fullness of time. We'll be back right after this.